Hi, this is Ingrid. Welcome to Liminal Knits, a place where we talk about knitting and life and spinning and other fiber arts. Wow, it's been a little while since I've podcast, I guess you'd say. Life got kind of busy and I fell down a couple other crafty sort of rabbit holes. So I was going to talk about that a little bit today. And it's just a wonderful time of year here in the middle of the Midwest. We've had our first 70-degree day finally, even though we had snow just 2 days ago. So we're really still on the edge of we're in a liminal space in terms of the weather here. So first, maybe I should start with what I'm wearing. This is the calligraphy cardi by Nora. I don't know how to say her last name. Gogwin. So you can see it has quite a lot of cabling here at the top. I like the sleeves on this. There's really no sleeves. You just sort of stop knitting, which is nice. And some buttons. This was probably my most challenging start to a sweater ever. I don't know. You start, I believe, if I remember correctly, at the top, and it was incredibly. I must have restarted the sweater 6 to 8 times. I just kept, but I was just really persistent and I didn't allow too many small mistakes. Like I have a fairly high tolerance for imperfection. But in this one, I couldn't let too much go wrong or the whole thing was gonna be unsatisfactory. So so I think I finished this in the summer of 2021. So it was for a knit along. It was a cardigan knit along that my local yarn shop was doing. And oh, I should mention the yarn is the DK. It's a DK weight of Madeline Tosh in the color Fragrant, which is it's just, I don't know, that my camera's not the greatest with the color, but it's just the most beautiful pink. I seem to have a penchant for pink sweaters. I've made 2 pink sweaters. I've probably only made three completed 3 sweaters in my life, which is funny because I've been knitting for a long time and I do start a lot of sweaters. But yeah, 2 of them are pink. One of them was a Soldatina, which is not pink, that got felted. And I think that's it actually. The other one was a Love Note that's also pink. But I have a couple in process, so I'll talk about that today too. So, okay, so what else have I been working on? Some things that are not pink. I started a pair, well, let me start with what I talked about last time. I said I was going to start a half and half wrap, and indeed I did. Let's see, I have it here. The color, I think, I don't have the name exactly right, but it's something, I did use the linen quill that everybody suggests. I've got a lot of strings going on here. Oh no, I just pulled a bunch off the edge. It's in the true turquoise. So, when I hold it up like this, it actually looks like I'm making some progress. So there's the smaller end and the bigger end. And, y'all, this is a labor of love. I mean, obviously I knew with the size of the needles and just get these back on here. And, the needle size isn't actually that small, but I knew with the yarn size that it was going to be a little bit of a slog, but holy cats. So my original plan, well, let me show you the color that I'm going to be doing it with. I think I showed you last time. So it's the Celadon green. So I don't know if you can see as much of a differentiation in those as there is in real life. But I was going to be doing this for a cruise for my mother-in-law for a present for a cruise that we're going on in the beginning of June. But I just think it's going to be too much of a stretch. I think I cast on, I forget what the exact numbers are. I think you can cast on like in the high 100s, like 180 or 270 or something like that. And I cast on 230, kind of in the middle, hoping that it would be big but not overwhelming. My mother-in-law, she's from the South. She doesn't wear a lot of knitted items but I had always told her that I thought she needed a shawl because she's a grandma and that grandma should have a shawl. And but yeah, it's taken quite a bit of time. So my revisited plan then is to probably not have it ready for the cruise because, quite frankly, selfishly, I just want to work on other things too. I think if I did nothing but that shawl, I could finish it, but it would be a little bit of a grind. So I think what I'm going to do is have it ready for her birthday, which is in November, which gives me, a nice um, expanse of time to work on it, but also work on some other things. So that's the half and half triangle wrap. I'm so impressed with people who knit multiples of these. I mean, I've seen people who've knit 4 and 5 and 6 of these. And, I see the allure now that how when you're knitting, sometimes once it gets past a certain length, you think, oh yeah, this is it. This is good. So I have gotten to that point, and I can see I like the fabric. I do like the linen quill very much, and I can see the appeal of watching all the different colors and how they work together and everything, and the fun of that. But I don't know if I knit another one. It's a good take along project because it's mindless, but it's just a lot of knitting. So and maybe I'm a slow knitter. I don't know. All right, so that's why I haven't have triangle wrap. The other thing that I'm working on is I started a pair of socks for my dad. Um, I saw Taylor over at Wool Needle Hands, is that right? Yeah, Wool Needles Hands. She was knitting some socks, maybe even for her dad. I can't remember, in this color, and I just thought it was fantastic. This turquoise. So I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but my dad is one of my biggest knitting fans. My dad totally gets it when it comes to knitting. His mother was a knitter. He actually knit briefly after my mother died. He I retaught him how to knit. He had learned as a child from his mother. So we had a lot of fun, and he really just likes the fiber. He likes being around people knitting. It's really sweet. And so he is like the most enthusiastic, the best, most knit-worthy person I know. Sadly, he has dementia now, so I feel a little bit under pressure to kind of get these cranked out. What I'm doing is I have one of the socks at where he lives at his assisted living, and I just kind of change them out. Like I knit on one, and then I get progress on it, and then I leave it there, and then I take the other one. So he always has one there kind of sitting in the window while I can work on the other one. The only thing I'm worried about is I'm using, I'm going to be frank, I don't buy a lot of yarn like Croy and things like that. But when I was at, it was Michael's, they had these little metal um, double pointed needles, and they're copper colored. And, I'm a little snobby about these things, but I actually love these. In fact, I particularly love these with this yarn. Isn't it nice sometimes when you get um, the color of the needles with the color of the yarn? There's a nice contrast there. So anyway, that's the saga with the Croy socks. I'm just using the Sock Ladies vanilla sock pattern. Oh, but that's my only concern, is that I'm doing the other one on a circular needle, and I'm worried that my gauge is going to be a little bit different. So I may just go pick myself up another pair of these copper because I like them and they're inexpensive. And so that's that. So those are the two things that I'm actively working on. Um, the other thing that I have that sort of I put on the back burner because I was hoping to have this done to be my dog walking sweater in the spring, but that's a very romantic idea that I had. um, the truth is, spring is weird here in the Midwest. Like we don't have. You could either look at it as like we have a very long spring, or we have a very short spring, which is really actually what it feels like. I mean, we had blizzard conditions maybe 2 weeks ago, and today it's 70. So there's not a lot of sort of like a long, drawn out cool spring. We seem to kind of go from winter to summer fairly quickly. Although it's still a little bit early for that, being April. We sometimes do get snow as late as like Mother's Day. But um, what I had been working on was the Icelandic sweater, the Afmeli sweater. And, I think last time I was here, I had done a sleeve and I had starred at the bottom. Maybe I had done both the sleeves. Anyway, I am ready to do the yoke, which is actually, this is funny. Oh, hold on. You can't see the bottom very well. That's what it looks like. Very wonderful yarn, this Lopi, very, you know, little rustic, but so that's the bottom. And so, yeah, I'm ready. But so here's the issue. This is the point at which I have to join the sleeves on, and then you start knitting the yoke up. And I haven't done it before, so I kind of stalled. That's not uncommon for me. I get to a point where I'm a little uncertain what I'm gonna do, and then I just set it aside. So I will hopefully, there will be a time when I will feel called to knit that again, as the weather probably starts getting colder, probably at the end of summer. So I don't know. I wonder, that would be an interesting thing for people to talk about in the comments if you're so inclined as, how do you sort of feel called to knit certain things at certain times of year, or are you pretty random about when you knit certain things? Do you try to knit ahead of the season that's coming? Like, were you knitting for the summer already in the winter? I wish I could do that, but I feel not only in the types of fiber that I use, but in the colors that I'm drawn to, very affected by the seasons. And sometimes that can be, you know, I can think ahead a little bit. Like, for example, at the end of summer, I'll start thinking about fall colors and oranges and rusts and things like that, and I'll be wanting to knit with those. So it's not like I have to be in the season. I do anticipate the season, but say, for example, right now it's April, I'm probably not going to be knitting, anything that feels Christmassy. That just feels really wrong to me. And I'm just curious whether other people are the same way. For me, that's part of what knitting and fiber arts is about, is like connecting with the seasons, connecting with the earth in a way, which is a really actually not a bad segue into the next thing that I want to talk about. Let me get a quick drink. Which is I have succumbed to the lure of spinning. I was watching Stitches in Starlight. I think a lot of people are watching Stitches in Starlight, which is wonderful. Tashi's such an entertaining and just warm and creative person, and inspiring. And she started talking about spinning, and I've had a spinning wheel for 25 years probably. That I had a very brief stint attempting spinning many years ago. I was very frustrated. There was no YouTube back then. There was, you had to kind of learn out of a book. And my husband, who's an engineer, picked it up very quickly. In fact, he knit. I should bring it down. He knit. I actually taught him to knit so he could use the yarn that he spun on my spinning wheel, which I just was at that time was not capable of doing. And but we grossly miscalculated the gauge, and it was supposed to be a hat, and it ended up being, I always call it his tube top that he knitted, because it was like about this big. It was huge, and it's very woolly, and I still have it because it's a good memory. But watching Tashi got me interested. I felt like I had a spindle here. I didn't bring my spindle over. So I started spindle spinning with a drop spindle a little bit, and I found it really amazingly relaxing. Hold on, I will go get it. Okay, so this was my first drop spindle. This was not the first yarn I spun on it, but this was a lovely fleece top I got, I think by Three Waters Farm. It's called something about grass growing or something. I don't remember the exact title, but there you go. That's now as I put it so close here. it's very imperfect, obviously. And I have not plied any of my hand spindled um, yarns together to make a real yarn yet. But that's just me practicing, and it's just very meditative and very nice. Um, so then like I said, we broke out the old spinning wheel. We had to fix a couple things on it, and I spun my first uh, plied yarn. So this is the Knit Picks wool of the Andes, and it's in a purple and a gray. And these are not. This is just total happenstance that I put these together into a yarn. I don't like high contrast yarns, like where you have a higher contrast between the two strands of it. So I'm embarrassed to show you this, but this will always be my first ball of yarn that I made myself. So here it is. And like I said, it's very high contrast. I really can't even imagine a situation that I would use this. Um, but it's very squishy, and I haven't washed it yet. I know that you're supposed to wash it. I think it's fairly balanced actually for a yarn, but the twist, if you're, look at that. It's very loosely. I just don't think it's supposed to look like that. So I'm still definitely in that looks better, right? So I'm very much definitely in the learning curve. But one of the things I'm enjoying about this is that I think when I was younger, I was very hard on myself. And you probably even heard it a little bit there. If things weren't perfect, then I was just, it was hard for me to continue doing them. But with spinning, what I love about it is even more so than knitting for some reason, even though knitting is definitely a technical skill that you can build on over time, spinning feels very much like sort of uncharted territory where I can learn a skill. And I was just very happy to be able to learn something, to do something new with my hands that involved some like sense memory and everything. We don't get a lot of opportunities, I feel like, to do that as we get older. We spend so much time when we're growing up learning how to do new things, learning how to play new sports, learning how to do new hobbies. And then, it's not uncommon for people in their 50s and 60s and 70s to pick up new hobbies, obviously. But just to sort of fire up that old body, mind, you know, tactile system, that it's been really fun. And so I've really just enjoyed doing sort of a little dive into that. So I do have one other fleece that I got. I joined there's a place called Nest Fiber, and they have a monthly subscription. And so this is a Falkland wool, and I'll just kind of give you an idea of what this looks like. And I don't know that my camera is going to really behave, but there you go. It's very sort of Easter eggy, very spring-like. Um, you know, what I see probably doing with this is making wool for hats. I make a lot of hats during Christmas time for people. And so if I could spin that's probably my goal for the next year or two, is just to be able to spin a consistent enough fiber that I can even use it just as part of the hats. It doesn't even have to be the main body of the hat. So, and I meant to say this before I started talking about spinning. I remember, like, I'm such a diehard knitter, and a lot of times, when some of my favorite bloggers would start talking about spinning, all of a sudden I sort of felt like a little bit of betrayal, like, no, you don't, stick to knitting. So I hope that if you came here for the knitting, that you'll have patience with the spinning, and just know that, like, it's all part of the same thing, and just another way to sort of experience the wonder of the fibery goodness that we have access to. In fact, I was wondering, that would be another question I have too, is like, are you someone that dabbles? I know I listen to Volin Vine a lot, and she's always talking about going down rabbit holes. That's probably where I got that term from. But she dabbles in a lot of things, like from like costuming to, she's also spinning currently and has in the past. And so I didn't know. when we went on a recent trip to Minneapolis recently, and we stopped by a weaving studio. They have a great facility there called Open Book, where they have the Minnesota Weavers Guild, which I think is the largest weavers guild in the country, in the up on the third floor there, and it was just very inspiring. So I do imagine I don't I feel like I'm full right now with what I'm doing, but I do imagine that weaving may be on the horizon for me here at some point. I can see wanting to get into it. Now, spinning to weave, probably not, because I imagine that takes a really long time. But all right, so that's knitting and that's spinning. And yeah, other than that, I think that my goals probably from now until the end of the school year are just to finish my dad's socks and keep working on the half and half. And then I probably would like to cast on some sort of lightweight summer tank or t-shirt or something like that that I can wear this summer. My problem is that I really am not a fast knitter. So if I start it now, I will be really, really lucky if I might be able to get something by June or July. I could see that happening. Um, but yeah, I'm just not a super fast knitter. And then a lot of these things tend to be with finer yarns. So that's one of my reasons that it's hard for me to knit for the season that I'm in the summer. I came across the School of Sweet Georgia, and I don't know if you know about this, but it's a online fiber art school put out by Sweet Georgia Yarns. And I remember Sweet Georgia from way back in the day, when knitting blogs were first online. There were no video blogs; it was all just writing. And I followed her. I can't remember her name. Just her blog way back when she was knitting, dyeing yarns, I believe, and knitting, and now she's like turned her let's see, her passion into this wonderful school that it's not terribly expensive. I don't remember how much it is a month exactly. But you have access to all these different classes and they're very well done. A lot of times I find that when I take an online class, it's either way too simplistic or I don't know, usually sometimes the instructors just don't talk at a level that fits where I'm at. But coming in as just a rank beginner with the spinning, I found all sorts of really useful information there. But not only does she have classes about spinning, she has classes about knitting, she has classes about weaving, she has classes about crochet, which is another thing that I would eventually like to learn to do. So I really highly recommend checking it out and seeing what she has to offer. So I think that's probably it for today. I don't have a lot to contribute in terms of reading. I can't remember if I mentioned that I have embarked on War and Peace by Leonard Tolstoy, and it's a great book, but it's a little slow going and not something I'm picking up as often as I should. I have a deadline to read that by the time we go on the cruise because we are going to be discussing it on the cruise, some members of the family, which I actually instigated, so I have to do it. My father-in-law has already finished it because that's just the kind of person that he is, and so now I am committed to have to read this book by early June. And I had been on sort of a trajectory of reading a book a month. I'm still buying plenty of books, but I've sort of fallen by the wayside. It's also a busy time of the term for me. I teach writing at a college, so we've just been through midterms, and so I've had a lot of grading and everything. So that's part of my excuse for not having had a lot read. But that's pretty much it for today. Thank you for coming by. Whether this is your first time or not, I do appreciate you listening, and I'd love it if you like the video and subscribe. And I'm hoping to be at a little more regular schedule in the not too distant future. So happy knitting, and I'll talk to you soon. One thing I did want to